minutes if possible. And so that I know that they have things to do on those Sundays. By the way, for everyone, this is our last Q&A for this preseason. And every session that we've held, every guest, every person that's participated, the sessions have been outstanding. The information shared, the connections made, the positioning achieved has been simply outstanding. And of course, since this is our last section, I saved the very best for last to take us home going into this coming season. And our special guest for today is our very own U.S. Olympic basketball official, Mrs. Blanca Burns. Blanca, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. How's everyone doing out there? Good? Hopefully good. I'm sure there's a lot of people watching what's today? Yeah, Sunday football, right? It's football day.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. And we're getting ready to transition, and we're all getting ready to transition into basketball season. It's here once again. And before you know it, let me rephrase that. Everyone but me will be running up and down the court again. You'll see me sitting way up in the stand somewhere with a bag of popcorn, just chilling and watching. That's what I love to do. But we're all going to get ready to run up and down the court again. But before we do, Blanca, the thing that I was privileged to experience with you, and I love you to share with everyone else, is the experience that you had, that you were blessed and to be afforded with, of working basketball in the Olympic Games. What was that like? What was that experience like?
First of all, just to hear that like come out of your mouth, it's honestly still hasn't fully hit me yet. It's something that I always dreamt about and thought about, but I never thought it was something that could actually like become a reality. And to say like that's literally the best experience, moment, opportunity that I was very fortunate and blessed to have. I learned a lot. The atmosphere was amazing, just seeing all the athletes, competing for their country. There was just something very special about it, and get to get the opportunity to get out on the court, in that stage. It kind of just like brought everything full circle for me, because I'm like, you guys all know here, like, where I started, doing little kids in the YMCA. So to get to work in that stage, honestly, is a dream. And I'm just glad that I was also able to represent, my country and, my family, my friends. So it was an unreal experience, and I'm so grateful that I got that opportunity.
Yes, I am very grateful, and you're right. Being very familiar with your journey, your every step along, literally every step along the way, and to see it, and understanding that it had been out there, it had been a vision that you'd had, it had been out there, and to see you constantly move toward it with diligence and discipline and consistency, and then to see it open up halfway it was a beautiful thing. And it was a prime example of this is how you achieve success. This is how you go after. This is how you manage it, and also this is how you experience it and appreciate it along the way. Also, so yes, this is a beautiful thing watching it happen. I just sat back and watched it unfold.
Yeah, and I will say, obviously, like none of that would have been possible without the foundation that I built coming up and through the ranks.
Yes.
Um, And I think, I'm very grateful for Wayne, and TC, and they literally were one of the first people that ever taught me how to blow a whistle. And of course, then you go back to the Tinker Officials Association days, and just all the trainings that I did, getting in front of that camera, just working on my signals, which I still kind of do, not as much as I should. But it's just honestly like it's all about that foundation. And without that foundation, I would have never been able to reach, the limits that I have reached in this career. It's kind of crazy to think about.
Exactly. Amen. A lot of people they don't understand what went into it. Going out there on that court at a church, just empty court in front of a camera, and just practicing and just getting reps in, man, and just having to do it over and over and over again. And it wasn't about reaching perfection. It's about you working on something to improve your craft until you're working at a level of excellence consistently. You work on it, you practice it enough, then it becomes excellence, man. No one else was there, just you in an empty gym. That was it, man.
That's it. Sometimes, you got to do what you got to do. So
That's right.
it's about that consistency. So it's what you
Come
just
on.
said.
Come on. All right, so let's open it up to the group. Who has our first question of the day? I know Faye has a question. Faye always has a question.
And by the way, feel free to ask anything. I mean, I love that it's a small group, very intimate setting. So like nobody's here is gonna be like, oh, well, why would you ask that question? No, like you don't know unless you ask. And it can be something as simple of how much my dogs weigh or whatever it may be. Just feel free to ask anything. I think right now is a good opportunity to do that amongst each other. So
I wanna
Faye,
ask,
Rosa.
yeah, I want to ask, what was the pivotal moment? Like something, that just changed for you.
Yeah, a lot changed for me, and I feel like the longer I do this, the more things continue to change for me. And I think that's one thing that's like super cool about, doing what we do is like there's always everyone has a different path, of course, and there's always, different challenges that come along the way. And as you start doing like, high school and then you move on to JUCO, like those challenges are challenges, but now it's like you face bigger types of challenges, obviously, because there's a lot more pressure. Doing it at the level that I'm doing it, honestly, there's a lot of moments, but what I love about it, it's just like moments that you can use to strengthen you, because we all know like this is not an easy journey. But through those obstacles and moments that you mentioned, I think that's like what's gotten me to where I am today, having that grit and that like no, like, yeah, I must have been terrible that game, but I'm gonna be better, and here's my plan to do that. So there's a lot of different moments, but I would say just the most pivotal one, I would say was a big one for me to overcome is just, when I got hurt. You guys all probably already know the story, when I tore my ACL and had to overcome that. And especially the timing of it, because I had just gotten hired Division I women's and tore up my ACL. And that was definitely a challenge because you're just so excited and happy that you finally get that moment and that opportunity. But for whatever reason, it just wasn't my time, and now in hindsight, I can go back and remember that moment and just think about like all the things that I learned through that moment. And it gave me honestly just more opportunity. And I needed more time, to get in the rules or watch game film. And so I was just at home, watching game film all the time, watching others work and still doing what I could, with the limited mobility that I had. But I, honestly, like, I feel like I came back stronger from that because of all of those moments leading up to that. Good question.
Really
Thank
good
you.
question, Rosa. Do we have a follow-up to that question, to that response? Or does someone have an additional question?
Okay, no questions, huh?
And
Okay,
they're making it easy on you. Really?
no
I
problem.
mean, I guess I want to elaborate, days go on and like you kind of lose focus and all these in life. But how do you really like feel yourself like I'm the one, I'm special enough for all of what's going on in your head?
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like if you don't have that self-assurance and that self-confidence that's in you, like it may not always show up because obviously we all have hard days where we're like, oh, here we go. But then that fire inside you that's within all of us, it's just deep in there. Sometimes you just gotta know that you have that regardless of what it is that you're feeling. And honestly, just positive self-talk a lot of the times just goes a long way for me, because obviously in this environment, it's an extremely negative environment. And honestly, out there, sometimes really all you have is yourself. You know, we say, oh, you know, like it's a crew, but yes, it's like there's also those challenges of like, what if you're with a crew that you just don't have chemistry with, right? So then how do you overcome that to put the game first? So there's always different types of challenges, but for me, it's always been that like grit and that just fire that like, okay, I may be down now. I may have torn my ACL, but you know what? I'm going to work harder. I'm going to strengthen better and I'm going to come back stronger. So for me, that positive self-talk, you know, and even just those little moments in the gym where it's just you working out, you know, and you're like waking up and you're like, oh, I don't really feel like doing it. But you still get out there and you do it, you know, and you just, it's all those little moments, you know, that I think help build that inner confidence that we all need and have inside of us.
So
Another-
can you recall like fears that you had then and fears that you have now?
Yeah, I would say starting off, my biggest fear was I don't want to miss a call. I don't want to mess up. I don't want to do anything wrong, you know, like, but I quickly realized that that's not realistic in what we do. So honestly, my fears back then would be that like, oh man, I want to be my best. I want to, you know, I want to get to the highest level. I want to do all of this stuff. Like, I don't want to miss a call. Or I must have just missed that travel. And it was just like more like green, you know, very fresh type of mentality. And now, like, I guess one of my biggest fears is because I'm always home. I'm always away and never home. Like, this maybe a little bit outside of basketball, but my fear is like, what if something happens to one of my loved ones and I'm so far away that I can't get to them? You know, so it's crazy how just like my fears have changed. I don't think I really fear games anymore. I go into games like fearing anything, because I'm very realistic in knowing that I'm gonna mess up. Like, I'm gonna miss a call. I may not communicate, you know, how I need to communicate. And I think have had some experience, you know, where those things didn't necessarily go very well. But again, it's like just having those moments and learning from them that now, honestly, like when I get out on the court, like I just have that inner confidence that we just talked about. But it took all of those days in the gym, all of those days flying, just, you know, you're in your head a lot, you know, and you're all you have. So just having that strong, good, like mental health, honestly, also has helped me a lot. So I would say fear, yeah, like that's one of my biggest fears now is just not being able to, you know, be close to my loved ones, you know, if something happens. So
Good, really good response, B. And you're right. Our concerns and our fears over time, they do evolve. They evolve with our experiences, with our life, as our lives evolves. I do know that Faye may be in a airport right now. She texted me her question, so I'm going to read her question.
okay.
Yeah, and she said, "Hey Blanca,"
What's up, Faye?
she said, "Why did you choose to start off on the women's side and then convert to the other side? Why didn't you just start off on the men's side?" She said, "Did you feel it was too difficult to move up going in that direction?"
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it, honestly, because back then, like, it wasn't as normal to see females doing men's games. And so, honestly, I never thought that that was an opportunity I even had when I first came in 10 years ago. And it's crazy to say that just over these last 10 years, it's slowly been progressing, you know, where you're starting to see more of that. Um, but I think, you know, there was a lot of people before me, you know, that had to take the first step, you know, for me to even know that that would potentially be a reality for me. And I would say I started on the women's side just because honestly, like I started doing KJCCC in Kansas and I went to women's camp and it's like, okay, like I guess I'm going to be doing women's basketball. It never even crossed my mind to even try out and go to a men's camp back then. Um, but like I said, it's definitely, as we all know, evolved now. And I think once I got hired in the G League in 2018, I was like, okay, like I'm doing men's basketball, I'm surviving. And most importantly for me, like I was just, I enjoyed it for whatever reason. I don't know if it was the pace or what it was, but it's just something about men's basketball really always like intrigued me. And then when I saw the possibility and the opportunity presented itself to, get to go on the college side now and work men's, and I was like, I'm already doing men's basketball. I've been in the G League now for however many years. So yeah, I was like, I'm gonna go for it. Why not? So yeah, that's kind of how my transition was. But like I said, it just wasn't very known back then. So I'm just grateful for all those assigners out there, that continue to give, women, opportunities to go out there and do what anyone can. Ultimately, as we all know, like our goal, as female especially, is just to be looked at as a referee. I don't want people to be like, oh, look, there's that girl out there working the men's game. Like, oh, like, and I know that's obviously not reality all the time, but it's just, we can do it just like anyone can, and we just want to be looked at as referees. So I was like, I can do it. I'm going to go for it, and I did. So blessed.
There it is. And you're right, great response. Do we have another question from the group? Who's next? Who has the next question for B?
I have a follow-up to the injury.
Okay. Hey, Todd.
Hey there. How did you handle the severity of your injury with all of your assigners at all levels?
Yeah, good question. But in that moment, like, I think they all understand, and I feel like most of them have been doing it long enough that they know that injuries are a part of what we do. Like injuries, things happening at home, like I think, with assigners know that. And so it was a little terrifying though, but that just goes to show again, just like where my mind was back then and where my mind is now with the whole thing. So I would say back then, like I think I might have called Wayne and just said, hey, Wayne, like, how should I handle this? Like, I was really nervous just to tell him I had been injured, and I didn't want to be penalized for it. That's how I felt. But yeah, I just called them, and they were all super supportive, obviously very understanding. There's not much that, they can say or do because of my injury. So they're just like, get better and we'll be here, whenever you're ready to come back. So they were extremely supportive and understanding. And it's because, they know that that's a part of what we do. So good question.
Good question, Todd. All right. I think TC might have a question for you, B.
All right, T.
Hey. Okay, my question is two of them.
Okay.
Since you're doing let's put it this way. Everybody has like a high school and a women's, college ball or men's, whatever the case may be, maybe multiple sets of rules and mechanics and stuff like that. And of course you do for FIBA, men's college, W and G League, and all those things. How
Yeah.
you like there are many stuff people that, oh well, I can use for the college mechanic for the high school game, who cares? But you're doing really good that, hey, you respect the game, so you do FIBA for although some mechanics that you don't like. But how you like focus, and is there any tips that you focus and you do different, games?
Yeah, that's
How you manage yourself?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. And I think one of the biggest challenges that I have faced in my journey. And like you mentioned, having 4 or 5 sets of rules in your head and knowing when to flip it on and flip it off is not easy. Like that is one of the hardest things that we have to do. For me, I think honestly, experience has helped me a lot with that, and just doing it over and over and over, where it's like one night I'm doing college and then the other night I'm doing G League, right? So it's like, for me early on, I had to figure out ways to almost transform myself in a way where I just had to flip the switch. So as soon as like I would go, let's say from a G League game, to a college game, I'm on a flight headed to the college game, or I have time, I'm sitting down somewhere drinking a coffee, I'll pull out whatever rule set that is, and I have a little sheet that I use, and it's my own personal sheet just of reminders, that are different and that really matter. You mentioned something earlier, and you said that, You know, some people think that, oh yeah, you know, I can just go get my fouls right and I don't have to do the signals or whatever. Like that's not the expectation that assigners and people that are putting you in those positions, they expect you to do it how you're supposed to do it. And this is why they gave you that opportunity. So back to when I first started and I was facing that, and this may be super silly, but when I was working G League games, you know, we use our precision timing, and G League games, I would put my precision timing in the back, and I would have my hair in a bun, right? Like that was my G League mode. And then when I would go to college, I would put my pack in the front, and then I would like just let my hair in a ponytail, like let it sit out. So I don't know why it is that like kind of helped me. I'm like, okay, that's it. Like you're in G League mode now, or you're in college mode. And that was kind of just a weird thing that worked for me. But I would say the biggest thing is as soon as you get the opportunity is open up plays from college games, you know, because then you're going to be like, oh yeah, the medias are whenever, and then now you're getting back to what you know because of those reminders. And I already had them ready. Like I have, you know, different charts that I use when I go from one set of rules to the other. But I would definitely challenge everybody to try and do it exactly how you're expected to do it, because that's what they trusted us with. That's why they gave us that job and that opportunity, is to do it how we're supposed to do it. Ultimately, yes, let's not have a fight and get your plays right, get your fouls, get your violations. But it's something that you really need to focus on. And also just like self-talk, like during the game, you know, when I'm there during like a WNBA warm-up, you know, I'm already looking at the court. Oh, you know, the teams are going towards their bench. Like, and these are kind of things that also help, you know, flip my mind from college. Because in college, they can't go towards their bench in the first half. Like they have to go opposite. So in the G League and W, they get to pick. So it's just a lot of little things like that, but actually being out on the floor, and then I would look up and see like where the fouls are going to be posted on the board. And then I'm like, oh yeah, here we shoot at 5 and not at 7, right? Because in college it's 7, here it's 5. And then you just start kind of going through that checklist of little things that you look at in the gym that remind you of right now I'm pro, you know, right now I'm in college. So that's kind of what's helped me. I would say it's definitely one of the biggest challenges, and it's still a challenge for me. Especially during the summer, you know, with having to do WNBA and then going through FIBA events, because FIBA is a little bit different whenever it comes to obviously the rules, the signals. So it's definitely challenging, but the repetitions have really helped me. So that's a really, really good question, TC. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, really, really good question. And B, that's great advice. And something I never even considered is that having physical reminders that helps keeps you in the moment, depending upon what level you're working. And I think that's great. That's outstanding advice. Mickey English has raised her hand, so I think Mickey has a question.
Hey, Mickey.
Hey, Blanca, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good.
Hey, so mine is not specific to your career itself, but more of an experience. So because you've worked from the White League all the way up to the epitome of the Olympics, is there anything that you would recommend to help with the shortage of officials that we see from an experience factor that would give us an opportunity to not only replenish our pipeline, but make the game better so that when we leave it, it was better than we found it?
Amen, man. That's an excellent question. And it's so sad. It's sad that people are scared to come out and do this job, honestly. And I think what has changed that a lot for us is technology. Now you see, you know, people fighting all the time, trying to fight the refs, and you're actually seeing videos of this, you know, out there. So I would say, like, for me, I always try to use my platform as best as I can to try to encourage people and show them the good of reffing, you know, and not necessarily all the negativity that people see when they get on YouTube or they get on TikTok and now you have another fight, right? Or you have another ref that's been jumped, whatever it may be. So whenever when I have an opportunity to like talk about it, I always go back and talk a lot about just my foundation. And it's the truth. Like without that foundation, then it would have been easy for me to want to quit and to just be like, no, I cannot handle this. I would say everybody can use their platform, whatever that may look like for you. Even if it's like, I would go randomly to like Fuzzies or somewhere and I would see a young man behind the counter that just has like a great look about him, and he looked, like he could look like a good referee. I would honestly just shoot my shot and I would ask them, and I just try to recruit people as much as I can. Anytime I get around the players, I try to encourage them like, hey, maybe one day you can be a ref, and try to show them that I'm human, and I'm also rough. And that's okay, because a lot of people are terrified of it because of all the social media and stuff. So I would just say, just continuing to show people and talk to people about all the good, in this thing that we do, however you want to call it. But it's honestly such a cool job and a great opportunity that we even get to do what we do and give back, give back to the game, give back to the kids. So I always just try to encourage players, when I am repping their games, whether it's little league or big league, it doesn't matter. If I can just throw it in there like, hey, maybe you should think about it. Oh, really? And when they show interest, then I'm like, you get on Google, if they're local, I'm like, L3, I rep, like I throw everybody out there, like all the groups that I know of around Oklahoma City, I'm like, they will help you and I'll keep in touch with them. So I would just say everyone just, use your platform that you have and recruit people if you think that they may lift the part or be a good referee. Why not?
Mickey, that was a great question. And you're right, it's a concern, it's something that we're constantly addressing. And B is right. Sometimes it's just have those one-on-one conversations, identify individuals, demonstrate and show the positive side of officiating. Let them know that there's people that we do this and that we have a love for what we do, and we're just people, just like they are, just like anyone else. It helps build that understanding. B, I have a question for you. This is a topic that we have touched on during the previous 4 sessions. And from your experience, how have you improved your ability to connect and communicate with your coordinators or assigners throughout the multiple leagues that you work in?
Wow, what a question. That's excellent. Because honestly, like, I don't know if it's the longer I do this, but now I go back and ask myself all of the time, I'm like, what would I have done differently if I knew what I know now? And how would I handle my career differently, like knowing what I know? And one of the things that always happens to pop up in my head is like, there's some fear that we feel, and I had, coming into my career and getting into different levels of basketball, and I would have fear to even reach out to an assigner. It was the most terrifying thing ever, right? But what I wish I would have done more is honestly just picked up the phone and called or send an email, honestly. But for me, like, if you go to a camp and you're not getting a lot of feedback, like, don't be afraid to ask questions and just try to figure out the why in it. So now, like, back then, like I told you, I would have to obviously reach out to my mentors and people that have kind of done things, in the same path as me, and ask them for advice, which, I mean, helped me a lot. And one of the biggest things that I learned back then is don't be too quick to reply, right? Because sometimes you get an email and maybe it's a good opportunity, but then you're already working a game for another assigner and now you're in a situation, but you're excited. So you say, yeah, I'll do it. And now you're in a bind, right? So that was definitely something that, I wrote emails when I shouldn't have a few times just because I was excited for the opportunity, instead of just taking a minute to like think about and process the information that I was given. And so that's definitely now, like, I literally, when I go to camps now, because I did have to go to quite a few college camps this summer, just because I was more pro route. So I went back to try to establish myself in the college side, because there's also a lot of movement on that side with the signers and different conferences moving. So I had to go to some camps, and I honestly would just go right up to the clinicians, and if they had something for me, I would ask them why. And even in the crew huddle, you know, when they give you feedback and you're not really understanding it, but you're just saying, yeah, yeah, you don't want to be the yeah, but person, but it's okay to just say, that's an interesting perspective, but what is it that I can do to better whatever it may be? Like, don't be scared to ask why, you know, because sometimes we do that, especially in a camp setting where you're like, oh, you know, like, I don't want to step on anyone's toes. I don't want to, like, just ask, pick up the phone and call someone. Now, if I have a question about scheduling or whatever it may be, instead of emailing my assigner, I call them. I straight up just call them. The head boss, like, I'm not calling the assistant. I'm calling them, because I just like, what's the point of beating around all these different, like, I just need an answer. So I just need to get my answer. So I would say, I know that looks a little different for everybody, but my biggest thing is just don't be scared to ask questions, and don't be scared to just have courage to figure out what it is that they may be talking about that you may not be understanding. So.
Great answer, B. I really appreciate that. And the beautiful thing is that there's a consistency in responses to that question. And the response has been very consistent, and we have to have it's not really fortitude, but we have to have these self-awareness and the confidence in ourselves to have these conversations. Because think about it, we all put these coordinators and assigners on pedestals, right? We put them on these pedestals and we find ourselves looking up at them, right?
Yeah.
But they are people, individuals just like you. They have responsibilities, they have their own motivations, but they're just people. One of the beautiful things that we've been discovering is that everyone who's come on here, they're just people. They're open, they're willing to help and share and learn. They're willing to learn from us just as much as we learn from them. So just people. So it's okay to have a conversation with them. It's perfectly okay. I love that response.
Yes, thank you. And I was gonna say real quick too, even if you think it's something that they may not want to hear, it's always better to just be straight up and be honest with them. And you can tell them right off the bat, hey, like, you're probably not gonna like what I'm about to tell you, but you know, just want to be transparent in our communication and just be straight up. Get to the point, whatever that may be or look like for you. But even if it's something that you don't think they may want to hear, or even if, like, let's say you double booked yourself because you didn't go close out a date that you should have closed out and you didn't, now you have 2 assignments. Then you call whoever you need to call and you say, hey, you know what? That's my bad. I took this assignment. I didn't close it out on the side. Like, take accountability for the mistakes that I mean, we're all gonna make mistakes, and they're not holding us to a standard of perfection. Now, if the same thing keeps happening over and over and over, then we have a problem. But if we have a situation where it's like, oh, you really just screwed up because you made a mistake and you thought you blocked it and you didn't, just be honest about it. You know, don't try to lie about it. Don't try to, you know, sugarcoat it. Just say it how it is, and they'll respect that. They'll respect that.
You're 100% correct. And they will respect it, and they'll respect it long term. And that indicates your fortitude and also who you are, your character, and your value system. If you're willing to have those conversations and be honest, we all make mistakes. All right, who has our next question for Blanca?
Shoot, I think I do. I think I've got a question.
Scott D, what's happening?
What's up, Scotty? Are you muted or what? Can't hear you. I think we lost you.
I'm in the process of readmitting Scott. He must have hit one of those buttons.
My fault. How you guys doing?
Nice
Hey,
hat.
I'll tell you what. It's we're out here living it up. We're out here living it up
Nice.
in the pool. I'm raking leaves right now. But
That's great.
my question from one of Blanca's biggest fans: what was a cliche? Because you know, in ref world, we love our phrases and we love our cliches. So, what was a cliche that you heard early on in your career that you rolled your eyes at, and then later found out if I would have just listened to that stupid phrase sooner, I would have had more success?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if there's an actual phrase, but I know there's, like, don't be too quick to reply. That was a good one, because a lot of the times I got caught trying to defend things instead of just like, you know, listening really to whatever it is that they wanted to say. So that was one. And then another one was just like, don't be scared to try new things like in games. Even if it comes down to communication, because sometimes, you know, I would have to come a little harder at somebody. Like if they're gonna come hard at me, I'm not gonna be timid in my tone that I'm using. You know, like if they're gonna come at me with strength, I'm gonna professionally also come back at them with strength in a professional manner, but a little more assertive. You know, so just like meeting the moment, you know, when those situations do arise, and just don't be scared to try new things. You know, that was another one that was another big one. Oh, another one is just be careful what you ask for. Because it's like we all want all of this stuff and we all want to work the biggest game and we all want all of these things. But I guess you never really know until you're actually in that moment. So just be ready for it. Not to say you can't handle it, you can handle it, but just be ready, because sometimes it's just gonna come at you and you just gotta be ready for it. So that was another good one too that I remember coming up. Yeah, good one, Scott.
Thanks for answering the question. Say hi to Natalie.
Hey, Nat.
And honorable mention, shout out to Todd. I'm muting my phone after this. Thanks for always checking in on my vacations and type of way. Thank you, B.
There you go.
Great question from Scott. Interesting question from Scott. All right, who has another question, or does anyone have a follow-up to that question for B?
Not quite a follow-up, but I have a question. Hi, Blanca.
Hi, Peggy. How are you?
I'm good. I still have a picture of us when we worked together at Debbie Williamson's camp in DC. I'm so
Oh,
proud of you.
thanks, girl. That means everything. You're gonna have to resend that to me, please.
I will.
Awesome.
My question is, one of my biggest fears or drawbacks as an official. I've grown since then, but I'm still trying to master, and maybe some people on the call may have the same issues sometimes with coaches and responses to coaches and statements to coaches and answering questions to coaches, and just being you get comfortable in one particular conference and you get used to your coaches. So you're with men, you're with college, you're with on different levels, and you're a new kid on the block, and coaches don't quite know you. So what are some nuggets that you can share when you're going into a new conference and you're having new coaches, and some coaches just may not want to deal with a female, some coaches just may not want to deal with a new official? So
Yeah,
how,
awesome. That is actually a really, really, really good question. And I would say that the first thing is just being able to recognize that you are the new person, that you are coming into a new league, that these coaches have not seen you, that you're working with partners that aren't going to trust you. You're working with coaches that have never seen you. So they're going to, I would say, be ready for the heat, you know, and because you know it's going to come. Even sometimes like when you're doing something right and you can't figure out like, dang, why does he keep coming at me? Like, I just feel like that was the easiest call of the game and he's still giving me a hard time. But I would say, you know, when I came up and when I was in those newer conferences, I honestly I kind of avoided communication a little bit, not avoided it, but I wasn't seeking it out because I wasn't in a space where I was comfortable enough to do that yet. So my main focus would be first is like, just get your plays right, be strong in your signals, use your voice when you communicate, run the game. And then when I started to see, you know, coaches a little bit more like, and I kind of had a relationship with them. And you always have those coaches, even like, you know, there was one coach from Iowa, I don't even know, it was a G League team. But for whatever reason, I'd been in the G League now like 5 years and he still would just come at me every single time. And there really wasn't any way, like I would try different ways of communicating to him. And he just, for whatever reason, was not wanting any sort of communication. And when he would want to communicate, it really wouldn't be communication. It would be him just trying to show me up or, just be disrespectful. So with some coaches, like you just have to understand that, you may not know why they feel this way, but you don't need to try to understand. Just try to get through the game as best as you can. And even if you need to create space, and I would communicate that with my partners. Like if I'm going into the pregame, every time I go to Iowa, I'm like, hey guys, just so you know, like this coach and I, for whatever reason, we're going to go into this game with a clean slate, but just so we're all aware, this is kind of how our relationship goes. And as far as like, the reality is that now you are starting to see more women, in the men's game. And the reality is that, we are a female in a man's game, and these men who are coaches, they haven't been used to seeing that. So especially when I came into college on the men's college side, I found that coaches wouldn't even know how to communicate with me. So they wouldn't even try. So it kind of was nice for me because I could just go and call my plays, but then they would talk to my partners every time. Like they felt a sense of comfort with them and communicating with them. And so in those situations, then I would try to find moments, during free throws or wherever it is, just to start building some sort of relationship with them. And it may not even have anything to do with basketball. Like, hey, nice shoes, coach. I see you, like whatever it may be. But just trying to, like, I guess, leave something there so he can know that, like, you can talk to me, like you can communicate with me. But yeah, I would say, the reality is a reality, and sometimes we can't change that. But I would just say, continue. We talked about just trying new things, with coaches. A lot of the times they just want to come and they want to scream and throw their hands up. The biggest thing for me was always like addressing like their behavior first before we can even get into a conversation, right? Because if you're talking to me and your hands are up the whole time and you're just like making me look like crap out here, like you're going to get called out for that. Respectfully, and I'd be like, coach, if you want me to have a conversation, please just put your hands down. And just being able to like look them in their eyes when you're having a conversation with them. I think that also goes a long way, because it also shows them like a sense of humanity. Like, hey, I'm a human. Like, just have a conversation with me. You don't need to yell at me, So I would just say, like, just don't be scared to communicate. Obviously, statements, I stay away from statements. Like, if they want to say, oh, well, that's 3 seconds, that's 3, like, okay, I just usually just don't even acknowledge that. Now, if you want to talk about a certain play and you have a legitimate question, then that's different. Then I make myself available. So I hope that kind of answered your question. I know I said a lot, but those are just some of the things that kind of helped me along.
It does. It does. And I'm just learning just not to take things personally. Because in the beginning, when I was a younger, more of an inexperienced official, it would be so hard for me to just bite my tongue. If they would clap, I clap back. And I had to learn, no, you're held at a higher standard and you're the calming factor in the situation. They don't know who you are. You have on stripes. So that's all that they know. So they're going to attack the stripes. So don't take it personally.
Exactly.
And I just had to learn to take some breaths. It teaches you patience, and it really teaches you to get in that rule book, get in your rule book, because you have a comeback when you know your rules.
Exactly.
But when they come at you and you don't have anything, then that's where they're going to continue to attack, because you don't have the knowledge to stand on what they're asking or what they're yelling at you about. So
yeah, no, that's a great point. And I've had a few situations where I was so in my head about the different rule stuff that like a play was getting challenged and a coach asked me a question. And in that moment, I couldn't think, like I couldn't give him an answer. So I just straight up said, hey, coach, you know what? I'm going to go ask my partners. I'm going to come right back. Like, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm going to get the answer. I'll be right back. So like also not always feeling like we need to answer everything right all of the time. It's okay to show that we're human, you know, and that I'm not going to know it all the time. And that's why there's three of us out here, you know? So I thought that was a really good point that you mentioned. And yeah, that's good stuff.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, another great question, another response. And one second, I'm getting feedback from somewhere.
You're muted, Wayne.
All right, do we have another question before I go I step into my favorite part of the Q&A? Does anyone, we have time for one more question if anyone has it.
I have another one.
All right.
With your meal regimen, being on the road all the time, how do you handle that?
Ooh. Wow. That's $1 million question right there. So of course I'm the most complicated eater because I don't eat meat. Like I try to be vegan most of the time. And you can only imagine it's already hard to eat on the road if you eat meat. Like, but if you don't eat anything, like that's honestly been another big challenge for me in my journey. And I honestly take my lunchbox everywhere with me. Like you'll never catch me somewhere without at least 2 sandwiches or something in my bag. Like I have to have things on me to survive. And honestly, just educating myself on my diet, you know, and what I could eat. So now, like, you know, I eat a lot of like nuts and seeds, like chia seeds. I like all of that stuff, you know. I don't always eat like super healthy because sometimes I'm just trying to survive. So I literally will just like make a sandwich. But I have always something in my bag, but it's definitely hard, especially when I went and did some of these FIBA events where I was going, you know, to the Philippines or Spain or somewhere where it's not as common for people to be vegan and vegetarian. I honestly like I had to eat salmon because I wasn't gonna make it. And obviously I couldn't take all of my stuff through customs because you can't take that stuff overseas. So I did have to do that just to survive, honestly, a few times. But you know, I always try to have my protein. I have to do like a protein shake, obviously, because protein is very hard for me. So either a protein shake or a protein bar, I always have those on me. And snacks, like I always have snacks. I usually shop at Sprouts. I really like it there. Fruit, I love fruit. Has anyone tried frozen grapes? Anybody? You guys, I just discovered this like maybe this year and it's changed my life, by the way. They're so good. I could just eat those all day. So yeah, it's a challenge, but you know, I make it happen. I hit up Whole Foods when I can, when I'm getting into a town and just kind of like fill my lunchbox up again, you know, because I don't always get to come home. So I usually hit up Whole Foods or go to a grocery store and always have something on me. So
You know what's interesting is that here's a challenge that has absolutely nothing to do with basketball officiating. It has nothing to do with what you do on the court.
yeah,
It is
exactly.
it's a life challenge, man. Okay,
Mhm.
but here's my favorite part of our Q&As. Do you have a question that you like the group to answer?
Okay. So what's the least experience here? How many years are we?
Me?
Shush. I mean, we had a pretty experienced crew up in here, right? Like everyone here has been doing this a while, right?
Except for Taylor. Taylor's joined us. He is,
Oh, Taylor.
yes, he's part of the, uh-oh, did we lose Taylor?
No, he
No, I see Taylor's hand up, or he's saying hi. Hi,
Yeah.
Taylor.
Hello,
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. So how long have you been refereeing?
Let's see. This December will be 2 years.
Oh,
So this will be my second full season, this upcoming season.
awesome. And you live around here, OKC, or where are you from?
Yeah, from Oklahoma City. I actually got started because Wayne and TC work out at my gym that I train at, and I was actually trying to get my little brother into it. long story. And so anyway, so I started working, Wayne invited me to a thing with Dunbar, so I went to that, and then I knew Derek way back in the day because we had played rec ball together. And he was like, "Hey, you should do it," and I was like, "No, I'm good. I don't want to do it." And then about a year later, I start getting invited to do games and everything, and now I'm on calls and stuff, so it's cool. So yeah.
That's awesome. Congratulations. I will say you are in the right place.
Thank you.
Because if it weren't for this group right now, right here and right now, I know I wouldn't be where I'm at. And it took that foundation that I've been talking about to get me to where I'm at. So that's really cool. Congrats
Yeah.
on your second year, right?
Yes, second year. And it's funny because as I've gotten to talk to Wayne a lot right now, I'm going through as I've worked with him at some of the stuff that we've done in like our open gyms, I guess you could say, is going through some of the stuff. And he's like, I've worked with people like this and that, and your name was one of the names that was brought up. So getting to now hear from you and know that he's teaching me some of the same stuff that he taught y'all back in the day is like
Yeah.
a super fun experience for me. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, you know that we're all here for you. If we can help in any way, just reach out. That's really good.
Yep.
Really
Appreciate
good.
that. Thank you.
And so for the rest of you on the call, I guess my question would be like what I always ask myself. And, you know, knowing what you know now, what would you do different?
Great question.
Find mentors sooner.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, I probably would have started sooner.
Okay.
If I know I'm trying to get my son into it now, and he's, not even legal yet. So I
Yeah.
think
Great.
now that knowing what we have now discovered and found out through all of the trials, tribulations, and roads, miles we put on the highway, we were doing it as a hobby, a way for extra money, for various other reasons. But I will not say that as a number one career, it was on that list. And I think now I'm really conscious and aware that like he can do this for a living and do something he enjoys, and then go, to your point, get to go see the country.
That's great. Mickey. Well, good on you for getting them started early.
Mhm.
I feel like now, like, yeah, everyone coming in now, like we have someone in the G League that probably like just turned 19 or something. So it's like,
Mhm.
I feel like they're just younger coming in. And it's really good though, because we do have a lot of resources out there, you know, not only with groups like this, but now like you can get on YouTube and literally Google how to referee or get on YouTube or Google wherever, and a bunch of videos pop up, right? And I'm not saying listen to all those videos because some of those are crazy, but just, you know, resources, rule books are out there now for free that you can just download. So it's just really cool to see how much all of that has evolved, you know? So that's good, Mickey. Awesome. Good for you.
I would say the same thing. I mean, I've been reffing for about 9 years, and I just got to college. So you've been reffing for 10 years, and like you've been, and
Yeah.
you got because of your mentors and the people that you know.
Yeah, that's good. And honestly, like, I can't even believe that I can say I've been doing this 10 years and I'm already like I am where I am.
Right.
What I really had to learn early on too, especially was coming into the G League or trying to get hired in the G League, is like I quickly had to realize that, you know, everyone's path is different, you know, because I had a really good group of 5 or 6 girls. We all came up together, started doing high school together, and, you know, then they all got hired in the G League one year and I didn't. And I was like, damn, like, what am I doing wrong? You know, trying to figure it. But then I quickly realized like everyone's journey, you know, looks very different, you know, but as long as you can be the best you can be with wherever you're at, if it's Catholic League or if it's YMCA, like just be the best you can be at whatever level you're doing, and just, you know, have that grit that I know that you have, you know. It's starting early would have been nicer for me too, but I feel like I'm it was a quite the journey already, 10 years. But yeah, I think I enjoyed the years I was at refereeing also. It's just like, dang, I wish I would have had more of that now.
What do you want to be left with as your legacy? Like,
Yeah, the biggest thing for me, honestly, coming from Mexico is just like I just want to make my family proud, and I want my mom and dad to feel like when they brought us over here when we had nothing like that, they made a good decision, you know, because my dad did it all for us. And honestly, like I do it for them and my family, you know, so I just want to know that I, you know, made them proud, and that for me is good enough.
Well, you already met that. So what's your next one?
Thank you. Honestly, I'm after the Olympics, I don't know who I told this story to, but I'm getting ready to like walk out my first Olympic game ever. And first of all, like you take a moment and you're just like looking around and you're like, how in the hell am I here right now? Like, and you just have that moment of wow, and you just take a deep breath. And like I just like looked around, literally, I was just standing there. And then I look up to the left and I just see my family up there and they're like holding a Mexican flag. And I just wanted to like pass out. Like now I could die tomorrow and be fine. Like that was just such a cool moment. So honestly, now like I'm just I want to continue to just have the joy that I have now, you know, in these years to come, even though it's going to get very challenging and it's going to be crazy. Like I just want to find joy and continue to find joy in this career, because it can be easy to kind of get negative in a negative space, especially because you're always alone too, you know, with working as much as I am year round. It's something that you just have to deal with and learn how to balance. But again, it just like my family's always there, you know, my close friends, I'll just FaceTime them. So I'm not eating alone at a restaurant, whatever it may be, just to kind of keep my mind right, you know. So
What's the ending like your age wise? What's the threshold? Do you know that? Or, like
I
have you ever
don't, honestly, that's a good question. I don't know. just gonna kind of see how my body does. Honestly, I'm feeling good right now. I feel like, you know, I'm in my prime. I'm feeling physically fit, like I'm feeling healthy, and I'm just gonna do it until I know I'm not enjoying it anymore. Like if it's something that's like bringing negative things into my life and I'm just not enjoying it, like I think that would be my time to just hang it up, you know. But obviously, I mean, I'm doing good right now. I think I got quite a few years left in me, so I'm just gonna keep taking it one opportunity at a time, you know, and just kind of see where I would love to be on a beach though by the age of like 60, just not doing anything. Not sure how realistic that is, but that's my dream. So
Really good questions, Rosa. B, really good question that you had for the group. You know, and since this is our last Q&A for this preseason, I would share with the group that probably the one thing that I would do differently earlier in my career, if I had knew then, Lord have mercy, if I knew then what I knew now, oh my God. I would have listened to others more. I would have listened. Because when I started like everyone else, why men's league, and I really thought I knew what I was doing. I really thought I did until I was exposed. And I would thank James McGee to this very day for bringing me to my first association meeting and exposing me to what real officiating really was, and having an understanding that there's just so much more to learn. It's just so much, there's so much to grow into. I'm like, it was just eye-opening that without that introduction, I never would have realized it.
yeah,
So I like to call it, I spent several years in the wilderness,
there you
just,
go.
just out there, just spinning my wheels. Where if if I'd listened sooner and got connected earlier, that's one thing that I would do. And then listen to others and not feel like you always have the answers. You
That's
know,
good.
I think that was been probably the biggest area of growth that I've achieved, just me personally. Because, especially back then, having a very strong personality. That's the best way to describe it. Yeah. And believing and understanding that, oh yeah, I knew what I was doing, I knew they had all the answers. And realizing that not only in officiating, but in life, that could be a detriment. If you're
Yeah,
not willing to listen to others and being willing to take a step back and learn from others. So if the one thing I would do differently, that would be it.
that's really good. And
Yeah.
that makes me think a little bit about like when I was coming up and I would go to the lighthouse and I think I'd worked like 10, 11 games in one day.
Right?
And now I'm like, hold up, I could barely make it through one game. But then I like remember you always telling me, you're like, you know, you may need to reconsider the amount of games you're doing because then it was building bad habits for me. You know, because it's exhausting. Who does that, right? Like, but we
Okay.
gotta do what we have to do. But that just reminds me, like, it's so important to just do it to a point where you're like not losing the good habits that you've built. You know, because that's super easy to do when we start working 7, 8 games, you know, and you're working with people that are there just to get paid, you know. So I always appreciated that from you, Wayne, that you always told me, hey, you know, take a step back a little bit. So that was good.
Yes, ma'am. Hey, I really appreciate you taking time out on your Sunday to come join us. Because I know you don't have a lot of Sundays at home. You don't have a lot of weekends at home. So I really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you guys for having me, and let me know, anyone here on the call. If you don't have my number, get my number from someone, reach out. I'm here for you guys, and just keep working like you are. Thank you.
There it is. All right, B, thank you. Hey, thank you everyone for who's participating in today's call. Thank you guys for being here week in and week out. And let's take this and let's get ready for this coming season. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you, Wayne.
Really
Thank you,
appreciate
Blanca, so
you.
much.
Thank you.
All righty.